and welcome to Autism BC Talks about RDI. And we're very fortunate today to have Gabby Howes of Alix Autism Consulting here with us. I'm Lisa Watson. I'm with Autism BC, and I'm from the traditional and ancestral and unceded territory of the Sealha people, also referred to as Kelowna. And we're getting a lot of questions at Autism BC about RDI, which stands for Relationship Development Intervention. So we thought, let's bring in the experts. So we've got Gabby Howes today, and like I said, she's with Alix Autism Consulting. She's also located out of Kelowna. I've known Gabby for years, and like I said, more parents are starting to ask about RDI. So we said, Gabby, what can you tell us about RDI? And Gabby, thank you for being kind enough to go on this today. So
thank you for inviting me.
I'm just going to start with a little bit about, we've got some basic questions because sometimes there's so many acronyms in the autism world. So RDI is another one. So Gabby, if you could just talk a little bit about what is RDI? What does it stand for and what does it mean?
So RDI stands for Relationship Development Intervention and is a family-focused autism program, where under the guidance of an RDI consultant, parents learn how to engage with their autistic kids. So the kids themselves develop and strengthen their social emotional abilities. For example, just give some example we work on. Abilities to work in sync and be in sync socially with other people without the need to control or be controlled with prompts or questioning. The ability to develop communication with a focus on communicating emotional state and also experiences, what you've done, what you plan, what your dream says. Ability to understand better theory of mind, which is called perspective taking. So ability to understand other people's positions, opinion, and accept them, but also how your words and your action impact others and react accordingly. Ability to be flexible, and different things here. Ability to develop 2 or 3 solutions to a problem solving, right? Appraisal, which is a bit different from problem solving. It's, once you have come up with 3 solutions, the ability to choose the one that's the most appropriate given the context. Ability to stay or quickly go back to emotional regulation when things don't go according to your will or they get harder, right? Basically go with the flow. And finally, ability to learn from experiences. So you stop avoiding the negative ones, right? So you don't want to engage with them, but you actually learn from them. So you go back and try them differently, which you call basically resiliency, right? The sum of these attributes we call in RDI dynamic intelligence. So basically, to put it another way, RDI teaches parents with the help of a consultant how to help their autistic kids develop dynamic intelligence, or to put it simpler, which is called flexible thinking, right? So, we all need it every day, right? Every day, the life is going to throw us, complex, unexpected, surprising, perplexing things, right? Things at us. And the more, flexible intelligence you have, flexibility, the easier life is going to be for you.
Thanks for sharing that. Yes.
Yeah, this
I
is
think
RDI.
We can all need more, we can all use more flexibility and more resilience in our lives, I'm sure. So that's great. Thanks for explaining about what RDI is. Are you able to tell us what got you into this field? Like, what made you branch out into RDI?
Oh, it's a very good question. So I've been practicing RDI for the past 6 years. And I'm also a safe and sound protocol practitioner. And I've been involved with this for, as I said, about 6 years. I was actually moving to Kelowna. My husband has a job here, and I was finishing my PhD. So I was looking for a job in a completely different area at the university and around here, and I couldn't find anything. And Dr. Gassin, the person who founded RDI, was developing the program in Canada. And one of my friends was looking for trainees. And because I have flexible thinking, I said, okay, I'm ready for a new challenge because I've given up looking for an old job, and I got certified in RDI I'm one of the first trainees in Canada, been, trained in Canada and, at the beginning of the program development in Canada.
How long has RDI been around? Because we're just starting to hear more about it at Autism BC, but I know it's been around a lot longer than the last few years.
For sure. So I would say officially RDI has been here about, in North America, about 15 years, unofficially about 18 years, which is pretty young compared, let's say, to ABA, which is, stems from the 1950s, right? However, the fact that it's so young, I think, speaks a lot to how different it is, right? And it's actually, in my opinion, a strength to the program. And I'd like to go a bit into the, how RDI came about in the history,
Sure.
How it came, because it thinks it will help people understand how is it a different program and why is it a different program. So Dr. Augustine, who is the founder of RDI, is a clinical psychologist, a psychologist who used to work at Houston, Texas Children's Hospital in Houston. And he used to work with youth and adolescents at risk with many serious mental issues and suicide. And he noticed when treating, working with this population, that a huge percentage of them were autistics. And he had this question, why? Like it came to him, why? He knew that, their IQ was normal or above normal, right? And he knew there were, early intervention that they've been through, right? And there were still this serious problem. So his question was, what is it missing, right? What's missing? Why, this wonderful autistic persons who have so much to offer are still struggling to such a degree that they develop these mental serious issues? And he started on a quest to answer this question, right? He first talked to adults, with autistic adults, with the kids, the one he was talking to teenager, right? To actually delve into the, real struggles. And once he did that, he turned to the research, right? And luckily, I think because of the moment when he looked at, which was in, around 2000, this coincided with, there was a lot of research coming about neuroscience. It's because of functional MRIs, brain scientists got to know what's happening in the brain. So he had access to the newest research into the brain, right? Into, I would say, autism research, child development research, trauma and attachment research, neurobiology. So the, the result of this quest is what's called relationship development intervention. So, which is, basically points at one huge area of struggles, it's flexible thinking. And this is what his, question is. So although the program, it's pretty young compared with, other programs, autistic, on autism, I think the age itself, because it came at that moment, parallel with the research, right? It's steeped in neuroscience, but also because the point of, when it came out about from a deep perspective, not from the kid point, but from a adult point of view of autistic adults, it has, a complete unique perspective.
That's great. Thanks for including that information. And I think that kind of segues to my next question. I think you've already answered it, is RDI evidence-based?
Yeah, and you're right. Part of, my answer in the previous question answered this. Of course, is based on neuroscience, so it's evidence-based, right? There are, hundreds upon hundreds of articles talking about, parent-child relationship programs, based program, as being very, very effective for kids' learning and growth. There are hundreds upon hundreds of, autism research that talks about, a huge area of struggle for autistic is flexible thinking, dynamic intelligence, right? So of course it's evidence-based. Now, I think the question, should include, research about the, efficacy of RDI itself, right? And, we have articles and they're ongoing, right? Because it's young, there are not so many. However, the one that we have something that, really lends credibility to RDI. They've been vetted by autistic specialists outside of the RDI field. I'll give you some example, people who are doing autism research itself, right? People who look at about, understanding autism brains, might know some of these names. So I'll give you an example of very famous autism research. His name is Peter Hobson, and he teaches at University College in London, right? It's one of this person who has vetted researches into RDI. We have Nicole Burkins. She teaches at Oklahoma University. We have Jessica Hobson. She teaches at Sonoma University. There are lots of these ones. I can provide for parents interested connection to the research so they can look into it. As I say, I know of many right now in printing or coming, many articles about RDI. One in particular I'm very excited about. It has been approved. I think it's in the Journal of Autism Research. It's an interview with some of the first graduates of the RDI program. So we have adults. I think one of them is married with a family. One of them has his own business, college graduates and so on, right? They've been interviewed about their experience with RDI, right? We have learned from neurodivergent movement, right, in RDI that we really need to listen to autistic voices, right? And nothing about them without them. So, this is a direct, a result of, we want to make sure we hear the voices and the experience of those people, those people who are, undergoing, who are going through the RDI program to make sure, it does what it proposes to do, right? So I'm super excited about that one. It's coming in very soon this summer. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. And I totally agree with what you say about, nothing about us without us. I think that's, hearing that's in the philosophy, that's great to hear as well. So, all right, so we've learned more about what RDI is. And can you tell us now, what does it involve from a financial standpoint for families? How much does it cost? We hear that from parents a lot. How much will this therapy cost us?
And it's a very good question. Now, while an RDI consultant is paid at the same rate as any other provider, let's say BCBA, OT, SLP, the program itself monthly, it's much cheaper and also really cost-effective long-term. Now, just to give you, kind of a rough number so you can know, monthly cost would cover about 8 to 10 hours of, direct meetings with the consultant, right? Which compared to other programs, which, have 8 to 10 hours a week, it's not very much. So it would be a fourth, of what other program would cost. Now, I have the question, why is it so cheap, right? And I think the way the program is organized explains why it is so cheap. It's because the focus of the program, right, it's on the parents. So the consultant is meeting and working with the child, but always in the presence of the parent, right? Parents love this because they know what, how the kids is treated, which, we like, especially, as a parent, you want to know what's happening with your kid, right? Especially when when he's nonverbal and so on, right? But the reason why, it's because we want parents to learn firsthand, right? To have modeled how to engage with their kids, with autistic kids, right? RDA empowers parents to be the agent of change for their kids. And there's numerous reasons why, right? They love them the best, they know them the best, but also they spend the most time with their kids more than anybody else. So they have the most chances to impact their development. And there's another reason why, right? Parents are going to be needed to be there, like, even if you have an autistic kid, it's not going to be different from having a neurotypical kid. You're going to be there, needed to guide them throughout all their life. So, in RDI, one of the goals of a consultant is actually to work ourselves out of a job, which actually means to transfer all our knowledge, understanding of autism, of development to the parents. So the parents become, knowledgeable, confident, independent. So, at a certain point, they don't need us anymore. We don't want parents to, be dependent for us forever, right? It's time consuming, it's money consuming, right? And we wanted them to get to that point when, after finishing with the RDI program, even if there's little things that need to be worked on, they don't need to start paying us again. They know what their kids need to be guided on, how to be, help to develop those things, right? They already know it because this is what they learned from RDI. And there's another reason why, the focus is on the parents. Now, we talked about, the core of RDI, it's the ability of the kids to learn, to develop their flexible thinking. Now, research shows that the only way this is learned, or how kids learn flexible thinking, dynamic intelligence, is from their parents, through their daily interaction. So, a therapist will not be there every day to be able to that, but the parent will be and will allow the kids to do that. So, cost effective this way because of the focus, right? Monthly cost effective, but it's really cost effective RDI long term, not only for that, for empowering the parent. There's another aspect, which makes RDI different. We encourage parents to apply what they learn in our meeting in their daily life occurrences. Parents are tired. They have jobs, they have other kids, they have things to run, they have bank, everything they have to do. So we tell parents to use what they're already doing to do RDI. So parents in RDI are doing RDI when they're shopping, when they're cooking, when they're cleaning, when they're trimming, when they do gardening, everything, right? And the beauty of this is that, while the focus is on transferring flexible thinking when they do this with their kids, and I'll give you an example, right? They teach kids what to do when, you plan on baking something and you're out of an ingredient. What do? They learn from you what to do, or, you have different solution and, you're just like, I don't know which one to choose, giving, the problem as hand, right? Appraisal or any other things, right? So the main purpose of RDI is to teach this, but while teaching this, the kids actually learn life skills. They learn how to do laundry, how to cook, and so on. So long term, parents in RDI don't have to pay interventionists or enroll their kids in life skill programs, right? So it's very cost effective.
So the parent is more like the behavior interventionist as well as being the parent, for lack of a better word.
For a way, because he's still parent. They're still parent. Only a parent who is very, mindful about developing that part, then it's more help for our kids, right? Rather than just teaching them the perfect way to make a cookie. It's what do you do when the cookie is not going right? How are you flexible when you learn this thing, right? The thinking, right? The flexibility of the thinking, right? So they can do both. So the program is really cost effective, but I find it also normalizing. Autistic kids get to learn from their parents, right? Life skills, just like they're neurotypical kids and peers. So, I think from all this point of view, I think the program is very cost effective.
Okay, so now we've learned that the parents or the caregivers are very important in the role. If you are doing RDI, how much work is involved for the family? Like, can you still have a job outside of the home and do RDI, have an RDI program with your child?
Mm-hmm. It's a very good question. And many parents ask about that at the beginning. So, direct work with a consultant, as I said, it's about 8 to 10 hours a month, right? And this involves, working with the kid in front of the consultant, right? Sometimes involves reading research articles about, flexible, thinking and, giving a reason why we should work on this. Involves watching webinars so they can see better, understand better what they have to do. And when they are ready, sometimes involves, giving a sample in form of a video to the consultant of their work with the kids so they can get feedback on, right? Okay. We have people in the program who have full-time jobs and very successful. The consultant is always there for the parents if they have struggles with finding time to look together at a schedule and suggest things and set priorities and really help the parents stay on track. Okay. Honestly, the first 6 months of RDI are pretty intensive in terms of learning because, like any other job, you learn something new. But after about the first 6 months, it becomes natural. You have learned so much that parents tell us it's like, I don't even realize I'm doing RDI. I'm using so many opportunities of what we're doing, that I'm immediately, getting the, the opportunity to do RDI. And they say, and we don't, at that point, they get so motivated though. They say that when we see our kids willing to do things with us, like our neurotypical kids. When they see them interested in our hobbies, and I have parents who, they wanted to do fishing with their kids, they wanted to, skiing, they wanted to teach them all the other things, to share them on, they say, when we do that, we do more RDA than, you think we do. So that gives them the motivation to do it.
That answers the question. And that's good to know, because I'm sure a lot of parents are thinking, well, I've got a job. How am I going to do this with my kid I work full time outside of the home. So it's great to know that this is still possible. So thank you. So Gabby, are you able to tell us a little bit about how is RDI different from ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis?
I think people have, gathered, from my answers, some differences between the two programs. But I'll go through some of them, the most important them. And I'm sure there's much more, but, just to give the parents an idea of the differences. So I would say starting with research, right? ABA is based in the research in the 50s, 70s, and RDI in the research in the 25s, right? That's the research stemming, under the program, the development of the program. ABA is, child intensely focused program. RDI is a family, right? Child and parents focused program, right? And I already explained why the reasons for this.
Right.
ABA has, as I said, a very set time and place of where therapists meet with the parent, with the kids. In RDI, right, we have that for the kids with the consultant, but most of the RDI therapy is done by the parents in daily life, right? We don't have in RDI repetitive rote memory exercises. We don't. We engage kids in everyday, life occurrences under the guidance of their parents. As I said, we have kids cooking, doing laundry with the parents, right? And all the other, changing tires, otherwise enjoying the beauty of the everyday life, right? The joy of life.
So it sounds like more natural learning, perhaps.
More, in a natural setting, and also less therapizing. Kids have time for winding down. They have time to enjoy their childhood. We have, as I said, us as a consultant, we're actually asked, when the kids develop, self-awareness or finish with the RDI program, to ask our kids, how was this experience? How did RDI feel to you, right? And we have many kids who have gone to the program. And very often they say, we did not even realize we were doing RDI. We're just spending extra time with our parents. So, more, as I said, more normalizing.
Yeah.
Let me talk about, a different, and I think this is a major difference between ABA and RDI. Differently from ABA, we do not use rewards, punishment, withholding autistic needs or want, basically any kind of reinforcement to motivate learning for autistic kids. So we don't use in RDI any outside motivators. We just really focus on developing growth seeking. So kids in RDI program, it's a huge focus in helping our kids, autistic kids, to develop and strengthen their internal intrinsic motivation. I want to put it differently just to see, right? So differently from ABA, we don't use any external motivator, no reinforcers. How we motivate our kids to want to learn, it's by offering them feeling of competence. Autism has created so many barriers for autistic, right? There is that huge anxiety of trying new things. There is, struggles with attentional issues. There is struggles with, having less energy where things becomes more complicated, right? That our kids, autistic kids, have so few chances of feeling competent. But competence breeds competence. The more you feel competent, the more you want competence. The more you feel incompetent, you don't want to do things. So we are very careful in RDI to teach parents how to offer experiences to our kids in their daily life so the kids feel competent. In RDI, kids learn that when they accept the invitation of the parents to do things to them, they feel good about themselves. They feel they are learning and they get motivation to get more. Give a kid, an autistic kid, competence, and he's now never going to want rewards, punishment, withdrawal, compliance or control. It's not needed. Now, I have, parents ask, okay, how do we get there? How do we make them invite us, right? Accept our invitation without rewards.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. So thank you for segueing into that.
Right? How do we make sure, right, that, we offer that invitation, they're accepted, right? How do we go over that resistance without bribing them, without controlling them, without forcing them? And actually, this is a huge part of the program. In the very beginning, parents are taught by consultant how to understand that resistance as a result of really heightened anxiety of new things, of feeling, lacking feel of competency. And we teach the parents how to set up the invitation in such a way that the anxiety is abated. That's a big part of the program, that, and then we teach kids we help kids how to encode their feeling of competency. So they say, oh, I remember when I wanted mama and I accepted that invitation, because if I'm going to do again, I'm going to relieve that sense of competency. So, to put it differently, in RDI, what to do at the core of it, we believe firmly in autistic kids' ability, to be competent, right? We believe strongly that autistic kids can learn like neurotypical kids without the needs for rewards, right? I really love, I had a parent who came to RDI and he really, I asked him, why did you want RDI, right? Like, how did you come to it? And what he said really struck me, and it really encompasses what RDI is about. And he said, I refuse to believe that my autistic kid cannot learn the same way as my neurotypical kid. He had two of them, right? Like, without need to reward. I deeply believe that motivation to learn, to want to do better, it's somewhere hidden deep inside. It just need more nourishing and more time to come out. And that's why I came to RDI, so you can help me find it. And it really struck me. It's like, I really admire how that parent did not let the label of autism, ignore or, negate his belief in his kids' competency. Yeah. And this is what RDI does, right? RDI does is, uses internal motivation, uses feeling of competency, right, as the fuel for our kids to want to learn, from the parents, how to navigate this dynamic world.
So would you say then, is RDI, it falls under positive behavior support or not?
No, we do not. No? We don't use any reinforcement, either positive or negative.
Okay.
When support comes in, the fact that you are proud of things, it's not as a motivator. Of course, we're going to praise our kids for the things they did, but that is secondary to making sure that the kid feels good about themselves.
So I think you've talked quite a bit about how it's different from ABA. And I guess one question I have is there data collecting involved? Do the parents have to do data collection? How does this work?
Not data collection, but they are going to notice whether the kid is able to problem solve, right? They are going to notice whether the kids become more flexible given a situation, if they're going to be able to better self-regulate, if they're going to be able to, you have kids who, were not able in RDI program to, they were doing parallel playing and then they suddenly can be part of a group play, right? If things, they are going to notice development. And and the consultant, it's going to be there to watch this. And I think this, talks about some of the similarities between ABA and RDI, right? About, how the program works in paperwork and so on.
No, I think you've answered a lot of the questions that we had about RDI that came into us. So one last one that we haven't touched on yet is stimming, or self-stimulatory behaviors. what is RDI's philosophy about it? Like, should they be extinguished? Are they okay? What's
For sure. I love that question. And I think it's really important. And I think if I go a bit about how RDI deals with stimming or, sees stimming, I think it's going to give an example to the parents how we work in RDI. And I think it's a great question.
okay?
So about stimming, in RDI, we do a lot of educating. So we, in RDI, and we see stimming as normal, if not universal, right? We explain to the parents that it's an experience of, it's using a sensory experience, often repetitive, right? With the purpose to, to achieve calm or, stress and anxiety relief, joy, sometimes pain relief, right? A way to self-regulate, a way for the brain to cope, to recharge, to reorganize, to get a break when, we become, too stimulated, like, tapping our foot when we are tired, chewing on death when we concentrating, which I do, right?
Yeah.
Blinking when you are anxious, or pacing, which I do. Who doesn't know a person who does that? Like, exactly. I mean, look at our families, look at our friends, look at everybody. This is normal. Now, what's happened with autistics, and this is where our education comes, is because the autistic brain processes sensory information differently, sometimes more, sometimes less, but also because the brain is easily stressed because of anxiety from other needs. The autistic brain, just they need to do more of it, and that's why it's more evident, right? So this is what we do with the parents. So we tell parents, use stimming as a way of information, especially if you have nonverbal kids. So if you have a nonverbal kid, watch, is the kid stimming for joy? Then give him as many opportunity for that as possible, right? Is the kid stimming because is in an environment that's anxious inducing, right? Is it, then look about what's causing the anxiety and try to reduce it. Is the kid stimming because, the brain is completely tired, at the end of the day or after school, usually it increases, right? Then back off and allow the brain to reorganize, to get the break, right? This is how we deal with it. Now, we deal also with, with those, really harmful stims as well, because they exist, right? When, I ask the parents, to ask themselves, is this destructive, right? Is it harmful to the person who is doing the stimming and to other ones, right? Only then, let's, find a way to deal with it, right? And I usually tell parents, if you have a verbal kid, talk about stimming non-judgmentally, right? Talk about this and come together and problem solve a way to find a substitute, right? We don't do extinguishing in RDI, right? I mean,
Right.
because that means you would take away a way of self-regulating, which we all need, right? So what, we tell them, offer alternatives, but very often we encourage parents of autistic kids to work with an OT, right? Okay. To find a sensory diet, right? A daily sensory diet, which could offer the same, soothing to the brain, right? Sometimes in advance, right? They, we can minimize, those really truthfully, harmful stimmings, right? And eventually replace them in a way. And very often this really works really well. And it's a way in which, and I mean, kids, autistic needs a say in this. It's their body, it's their decision. We don't, why should we take this power away from them, right? And this is a way that really works very well while respecting and understanding stimming.
I really, really appreciate that answer. Great. Last question, Gabby, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. So much appreciated. And the last question would be, okay, so we want to learn more about RDI for our child or for our autistic adult. Where do we go next? Where can we find valuable information about RDI?
If you are outside Canada, you go to RDI Connect. It's the main hub of the RDI providers and the RDI, consultant, and there's it's in a link in the, I think the right hand corner of find a consultant, and they are listed by country or by province or by state, wherever, you know, what you're looking for if you're outside of Canada.
Okay.
In Canada, we have a website for RDI Consultant. It's called accessautism.ca.
Okay.
We have a Facebook page with the same name.
Okay.
And in particular, in BC, we have a Facebook page called RDI in Greater Vancouver area in BC.
No, that's great. And I think that's a starting point for a lot of families. We really value the time that you took to talk to us about RDI, because that's a huge question we're getting right now. So we're trying to have talks that are, you know, what are families asking? What do you want to learn about? So RDI was one of them. So thank you, Gabby.
Thank you for having me, and, you know, don't hesitate to contact me if you need me again.
And Gabby, again, is Gabby House of Alix Autism Consulting, and she's located out of Kelowna. So
and I
thanks,
work
Gabby.
in the entirety of BC as well. I have
Wonderful. So you're doing a lot of virtual still.
For sure, yeah. With COVID, it's nice being able to do that.
Yeah. Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you, Lisa.